Step 7 of the plot series. How do I plot a novel, memoir, or screenplay? Welcome back. Today we are making a huge shift in our journey together on our path of plotting out a new story. And that is, we are moving from the beginning of the series to the middle. So that's for you personally as the writer. We started at the beginning setting up all the characters, or setting up the characters' needs and flaws and goals, and setting up the dramatic action, thinking about who, if any, there'll be a romantic plot with, thinking about subplots, secondary plots, setting. So everything is pretty much set, ready to go. So now you have to cross over into the exotic world, and this is where it can get intimidating for a writer. Most writers are intuitive writers. They're very right-brained, very highly creative, and so to do what we're talking about is linear. It's very organized. It's, you know, starts at the beginning, goes through, and so a lot of writers really balk at this. So just sort of hang in there, stick with me, see what happens, because now you're crossing over into the exotic world of becoming a plotter. But for the series, we're actually crossing all the way to the climax, to the very end of the book, to think about the climax first. Before you actually think about how you're going to start your story, I want you to sort of visualize how you think your story may end. The climax is the crowning glory of the entire piece, and it's what the character is able to do that they were not able to do at the beginning of the story. They needed to go through every single experience that happened throughout the story, face all the antagonists, all the challenges, go up against all their own flaws and the things that are affecting them, to be able to get to the point that they can face their greatest antagonist, stand up for themselves, and prevail. And I like to say that beginnings hook readers, but the endings are what create fans. People are left with the end, so the ending is really critical that obviously you pull it off right. So what I want you to think about is, where do you think your character is going to end up at the end? Who would be the greatest antagonist that they need to face in the story overall? If it's a character-driven story, it's imperative that the character themselves have overcome their flaw, have learned enough about themselves and their own strengths to be able to do what they do at the climax. For a dramatic action plot, it's really driven by the energy of the story. The story energetically rises and falls and rises to the climax, and that's the highest point in the entire story energetically. So I want you to think about what that point might be for your character. And I brought a couple examples. One is The Alchemist, and this is a spiritual journey, so it's definitely character-driven, although there's a lot of dramatic action in the middle. But in order for this young shepherd to be able to live his life as he was destined to live it, he had to undergo a spiritual journey. He had to go into the exotic world, face his fears, find out what he needed to find out in order to go back and to realize that he had everything he needed all along back home. For this middle grade novel, it's Esperanza Rising. It's a young girl who starts out very affluent in Mexico, comes to California when they lose everything, and she then becomes a migrant worker, and she has to learn to be able to see people for who they really are and not to be so elitist as she was at the beginning. So she goes through all the dramatic action to be able to, in the end, gift something to one of the younger people that she could have never done throughout the story if she hadn't had to face all the antagonists. And for The Wild Things, the picture book, classic picture book, Max at the very end, he's ready to come home, take off his wild man suit, eat his dinner, calm down, and be a good boy. He couldn't have done that, really, unless he had gone through the adventure in the middle when he went to the land of the wild things. And that allowed him to understand what's the most important thing to him in life, which is his mother and his family and hot food. So I want you to try to think about that. What could be the end of your story? And write that down. Oh, I forgot to say, also, please feel free to visit my website, blockbusterplots.com. Go to my blog, The Plot Whisperer. There's also the rest of the series on my YouTube channel, which is Martha Alderson, and it's all one word, is the user name for the YouTube channel. But there are notes, there's tips, there are products, there's plot tools, there's a book, there's all sorts of things to help you plot a memoir, novel, or screenplay if you need added support. So, I'll see you next time. Oh, and just to let you know, we're at the jail, and I wanted to let you think about the fact that usually at the beginning of the story, people are in a jail. They're in a jail of their own making, and when they cross over from the beginning into the middle, they break from the jail. They're leaving behind the known world, they're going into an unknown world, but they are breaking free, and they're starting to come into their own. And that's what you're going to be doing, and that's what your character will be doing. Thank you.